Hello students, welcome to the operating systems course, and this is going to be our first lecture. In this lecture I am going to discuss about the introduction to operating systems. First we will try to understand what is an operating system. So seeing this diagram, I know that you will be surprised what is the role of the human body anatomy in the operating system course. Actually I am planning to make you relate the human body with the computer so that you can also understand the role of operating system in a computer. If you take the human body that is being projected in this picture, it's a combination of organs. A human body is made of a variety of organs. The most prominent organs are mentioned here, but there are a lot more organs which are also there. The point is that we are referring it as a human being or human body, it's internally it is collection of organs which are functioning together so that it gives a uniform experience. And out of all the organs, there is one particular organ which controls the entire body, or it controls all the other organs. So that organ actually I'm talking about the brain of a human being. So the brain has a additional, or it has the special responsibility of controlling all the other organs. So it is the one that gives instructions to other organs on what to do, and it also takes feedback from other organs and take the remedial action. So whenever there is a problem with a certain organ, it gets reported to the brain, and the brain is the one that reacts or responds to that request. So this is the role of a brain. Similarly, there is one more point I would like you to note down before we move on to relating this to the computer, that it's not just the hardware organs that allows us to function. There is also some invisible content that is existing in our body, which also is crucial for our day-to-day activity, which is the storage, that is the memory, knowledge, creativity. Those are all other dimensions of the human being which are actually not hardware. That means you can't see them, and you can't even modify them. So these are invisible aspects of a human body which I am referring as knowledge. So both these two together works for making a person to be alive and to be active. Now coming to the computer story, we also have a computer which is made of various components. So now we have got various components which are all interconnected to make into a computer. Here also we have got a number of devices which are shown here, but once again, just like the brain of a human being, here also there is a kind of brain that is available, which is nothing but the CPU. So the CPU is the one that acts as a brain of a computer. It is the one that instructs all the other devices, and also it also takes the takes the feedback from other components whenever they complete their jobs, or whenever they are experiencing some problem. They are all reported to the CPU, and the CPU is the one that responds to them. So it is very much like a human brain. Now coming to the second aspect, as we had seen, it's not just the hardware that is needed for a person to be alive. We also need the knowledge part. In the case of computer, the knowledge part is what we can refer it as a operating system. So the operating system is running on the CPU, and it controls the overall computer, and it interacts with the user. It fulfills the requests of the user. So if you remove the operating system from a computer, it's like a person who has gone brain dead. So he will be alive, but he can't do anything with by accessing his his body. In the same way, if you remove operating system, you will only have hardware which will be of no use for any purpose. So the operating system is playing a very important role in a computer. It is one that makes the computer to become alive. it gives the life to the to the computer. Now we had already seen that a computer is a combination of hardware and software, and some of the hardwares are mentioned here: CPU, monitor, keyboard, mouse are some examples of hardware. There are many more, in fact, and the examples for software are also listed here. One most important software is the operating system, and besides that we have compiler. Somebody could be using gaming software, somebody could be using internet browser. So they are all different types of softwares that are available, and OS is the one that is controlling the computer. Now coming to the next point, how a normal user views a computer. A person who has no fundamental knowledge on the computer hardware will just be looking at a computer as a resource he can use for his personal task. If he is working in a company, his view of a computer is how he can utilize the computer resources for his job. So he is not going to be concerned about or not going to be aware of the inherent complexities of the computer, because it is all hidden by the operating system. The operating system abstracts all the complexities of the computer hardware, so that it gives a pleasant and easy experience to the ordinary user. Now we are going into the definition part. So how we can define an operating system and what is an operating system. Point number 1, an operating system is a system software. We know very well about that it is a software because it's a coding. It is written as a program, so it must be a software. But how is it a system software? We are classifying the software of a computer into two types: application and system software. Application software are all those software which are catering to the needs of the user. So the user, for his personal requirements, he will be using lot of software. For example, if somebody is working in a marketing department, he is likely to need the Excel software more often. If somebody is working in the designing team, then he may be needing some drawing tool. Similarly, different users have different needs. So similarly, if the computer is used in a bank, then there will be a banking software. So all these applications softwares are called application softwares. Whereas there is another software which facilitates the execution of the application software, which are collectively called as system software. So the system softwares are the ones that runs at the bottom of the hierarchy, closer to the hardware, and on top of it they facilitate the execution of the application software. And one of the most vital system software is obviously the operating system. So the operating system is the one that runs in the CPU, and it is facilitating the execution of all other software that you are going to make use of. It acts as this is a classic definition of OS. So wherever you are asked how to define OS, you can simply state this two lines. An operating system acts as an interface between the computer system and the computer users and the computer hardware, and it provides a user friendly environment in which a user without any knowledge of a computer can still use the computer for his requirements, since it abstracts the complexities of the hardware. So okay, what do we mean by abstracting the complexity of a hardware? The simplest example for you to realize this point is that any hardware can only understand the machine language, because hardwares are designed at a lower level that they can only handle machine language instructions. They cannot take the instructions provided in English language. So but you can't force the ordinary user to learn machine language in order to take a printout. So I can't talk to the printer in the machine language So there is a language barrier. So this has been easily overcome because of the operating system. So the operating system is able to interact with the user in English. It takes the request from the user in the way that he can communicate, and then it communicates that instruction in the language that the hardware can understand, which is machine language. So it's very important that the operating system is available, and it acts as an interface between the user and the hardware. Now we can also define an operating system as a resource manager, because it is the one that is in charge of all the resources in a computer. It is the one that allocates and deallocates each and every resource in a computer, starting from the CPU, main memory, cache memory, hard disk, various bus interconnections, all the IO devices. So everything is under the control of the operating system. And considering this, it's also widely referred to as a resource manager. And some of the managements it is doing is the processor management, or CPU management, memory management, file management, IO management, device management, and concurrency control. So these are some of the management services which are provided by the operating system. Next topic is very important for you to understand, because it will for all the in the remaining topics we will be referring to this particular term very often. So system calls. The operating system, one more advantage or service of the operating system is that it has a rich collection of library functions. So every operating system is also added with a list of functions, so that those functions can be made use of by the user applications. So whenever the user programs or applications are developed, you don't need to write each and every code for handling the hardware. For example, assume that you want to write a program in C to print a value on a screen. So you want to write a program to take input from the keyboard. So when you write such programs, you don't have to write the code for handling the keyboard or code for handling the monitor. That is all already pre-written in the library, and there is the OS is having the necessary module for that. Your program will just invoke those functions. For example, if you write a printf call, the printf call is not having all the statements for the accessing the hardware. It is interfaced with the OS function, which is meant for the monitor or a keyboard access. So that is called the idea of system calls. So system calls is the interface between application programs and OS functions, through which only you can have the user application can invoke the hardware. No user application can directly handle the hardware. The reasons for providing this indirect way of accessing hardware is will be discussed shortly. The user applications must invoke the OS routines, functions, or commands to interact with the hardware. And we will also see some demonstration of programs which are implemented in this way by the programs to invoke the system calls. We will be seeing in another session. And what is API? Application programs are the library functions. So system call is a mechanism. It is a mechanism by which the user application is able to invoke the OS modules, and those OS modules or functions are called as the APIs. So APIs are various functions which are offered by the particular operating system, so that they all can be utilized by the user programs. So it provides an interface between the user process and the operating system. Okay, now we are looking at the reasons for this kind of a restriction, that hardware should only be accessed through the operating system modules. Number one, it simplifies hardware access for programmers. So if everybody want to access, if different people want to access different hardwares, if in the absence of any OS module, then each and every person have to rewrite the same function again and again for his program. But now that they have been already implemented by somebody and they are offered as library functions, the programmer only need to concentrate on his logic for the solving the problem. You don't have to bother about how do I deal with the keyboard or how do I deal with the monitor. He can just make a call to the built-in modules or OS modules. Another reason that this is helpful is it protects the hardware resources from improper usages, because the OS does not allow the hardware to be accessed directly. It can easily protect the hardware from improper uses of the malware. I mean, some malicious programs may be intending to manipulate the hardwares. That is prevented by this arrangement. So system calls, I am just repeating, system calls are the interface between user, applications and operating system modules, so that with the help of system calls the user applications can manipulate the hardware. So every time a program wants to access a hardware, it will send a request to the operating system saying that I need to access this particular device, and seeing this, the OS will then invoke the appropriate OS module for that, and then the necessary operation will be carried out on the hardware, and the result will be sent back to the, finally it will be reaching to the user process. These are some examples of system calls. Like whenever you write the malloc, you are actually trying to get some memory allocation, and memory is a resource, a hardware resource which you can't directly access. So what happens is that the OS is taking the request and it invokes its own module, and then the memory is allocated. Similarly, all the other examples that you see here, they are all actually inherently they will be using appropriate system calls. The same is also conveyed here. You can see that the system calls are in between the user programs and the operating system. Now the next is types of operating systems. Though the definition of or the functionality of the operating system is same, there are variations of operating system depending upon the environments in which they are used. So you may be using an operating system in a personal computer or a PC, in which case the operating system is designed taking into consideration the demands of a personal user. For a personal user, his priorities will be a pleasant experience. He would like to see lot of graphics, GUI, colorful interaction. He is least bothered about performance, because he is not going to run any major heavy application. So his expectation is accordingly fulfilled by the operating system. And we know Windows and Mac are two popular personal computer operating systems, and you may be using the mobile computers, so mobile phones, in which case there is an operating system meant for the mobile phones. So our Android is the commonly and most popular operating system for mobile phones. Another example is network operating systems. So if you are establishing a network, you need to have an operating system which is able to create a client server environment. So in that case, you have to install a network OS in the server and the client OS in the individual systems. Only then they will be interconnected as a network. And there is another type of system called a distributed system. A distributed system is a collection of independent and autonomous computers, and they are interconnected to serve a common purpose. Like you want to run an application by splitting it into smaller pieces, and each will be handed over to different computers, and finally the results will be merged to produce a single result. In such type of systems make use of a specific OS called distributed OS. Another popular example is real-time OS. So real-time OS are again it's a unique system real-time system. Real-time systems are systems which have time deadlines. So for example, if you take the nuclear power plants, there all the computers have to be completing their task within a precise deadline. So if they miss the deadline, then the consequence of the deadline missing will be very severe. It could even result in a major blast or an accident. And similarly, rocket launching. So there are applications where the time deadlines are vital. So in such cases, the operating system has to be specifically designed for considering the deadlines of the various processes and schedule them by prioritizing the process with the nearest deadline. So that is a type of OS called real-time OS. Another is embedded OS. So embedded is like the smaller devices. So nowadays we have got small devices for dedicated purposes, and there is also a small piece of OS running within them. Even washing machine has got a processor, so that we can time the the washing machine. So those are examples of embedded OS. Another such OS is mainframe OS. So mainframe computers are computers which are powerful computers, and they run massive applications. For example, we are using the ATMs. There are ATM devices across the country, and there is a software, there is a server which is running to control them, which is typically a mainframe computer. Now we are looking at some actual operating system examples like the Mac OS, iOS, Linux, Windows, Android, and BSD OS, and there are also other OS available besides these. The next topic is operating system services. Operating system provides an environment for execution of programs. So whenever you want to run a program, there is a lot needs to be done by the operating system for you to run the program. So if you recall the cycle of executing programs, you first need a editor to type the program. That is you have to get it from the OS. So the editor. Then you will be typing the program, and finally you will be compiling the program. So the compiler is also held by the operating system. So there is the role of operating system needed for compiling the program, and after compilation you would like to run the program. You would have typed ./a.out to run the program, and that will also result in invoking the OS, so that the program that you want to run gets loaded into the main memory. So the loading process is also facilitated by the operating system, and once the program is loaded, it needs to get into the CPU. There is a scheduling needed, so that this program can at some point of time enter the CPU. That is also done by the operating system. So the scheduling, and during scheduling, once it is scheduled and under execution, it may deal with encounter many situations. For example, it may want to access a keyboard. Let's say there is a scanf statement, and for that you have to contact the keyboard. And as we had seen earlier, a user program cannot directly manipulate the keyboard, so it will send a request to the operating system. A system call will be made, and then the necessary API will be invoked, and then the input will be received and will be submitted back to the user process. So that is one requirement, that whenever there is a hardware access needed by the program, it requires the OS support. Another possibility is, for example, there is a exception. So the currently running program encounters an exception. Again, the OS has to notice this, that there is an exception and this program is not going to proceed beyond this. So it will terminate the program and intimate the user that the program has been stopped. So the point is that execution of programs is continuously needing the role of the operating system, starting from typing the program till the execution of the program. This is the view of operating system services. At the top level of the view, we can see that the OS provides an interface. So if you are using a Windows operating system, you know that it will have the desktop in which you will have the start button and the lot of icons. So that is a graphical user interface. And similarly, you also have a similar interface with your Android operating system. So those are all examples for GUIs. But there is another class of interface called command line interface, which is you would have experienced it if you have used the command line interface in the Linux based operating system. So to do C programs, that is that blank screen where you have to manually type all the instructions or commands is called as the command line interface. So the first services of the operating system is the interface. After that, it has got a wide range of services like execution, IO operation, and so on. We will look at them one by one. So first service is user interface, and as we had seen, there are three options available: command line interface, graphical interface, and the third one is batch interface. So what is a batch interface is that it's a older version of the interface where you have to submit all the tasks by batching them together as a bundle. You have to submit them to the operating system, and then they will be executed in sequence. That kind of a older version of the interface is called batch interface. But nowadays we use either the command line interface or the graphical interface. Graphical interface is more suitable for ordinary users who are not so proficient with computer hardware, and they are not developing any software. Whereas command line interface is preferred by programmers and the administrators because it is a lightweight interface, and so it will be running faster than the GUI. It will also require lesser memory for holding. And this already we explored, like the operating system provides the services for execution of the programs. Another is IO operations. So whenever you write any IO statement, the IO device is actually facilitated by the operating system with the help of the system calls. And similarly, file management. So when you want to store and retrieve files, that is also done by the operating system. And the next service is communication or IPC. So the term IPC stands for inter-process communication. When you are using a computer, it's very rare that you just run one application at a time, and mostly there will be many applications simultaneously running. Some applications explicitly you run them, and some applications are running without your knowledge. Like if you have an antivirus software, it will periodically run at the background and it will scan the system. So there are a number of programs currently running all the time, and they may be wanting to interact with each other for some purpose. So for example, if there are two programs or two applications, and one application want to send a message to the some information has to be forwarded to the other application. So how they will communicate, because they are two different programs and they are not running they are not loaded in the same memory space, so they cannot communicate directly. Then the OS has to facilitate the communication. So inter-process communication is nothing but communication between two currently running processes. This communication can even happen between processes running in different computers. Like in a network, you have two computers, and one computer is running process 1, another computer is running process 2, and they want to interact with each other, and that is also it is the OS job to fulfill that. And we have two approaches to facilitate the IPC or inter-process communication. One is shared memory, the other one is message passing. So what is the difference between these two, and where to choose, in which scenario you should go for shared memory and where you should go for message passing? All that will be explored later when we have a since we have a separate topic on shared memory and message passing. But as of now, what you need to remember is that whenever you want to implement IPC, you can either use shared memory or message passing. Another service is error detection. So errors are of different types of errors are encountered in the computer. It could be related to memory or CPU, hardware error, software error, parity error, network error, so arithmetic overflow, exception. So plenty of errors are occurring in a computer, and the operating system should be capable of identifying all the errors, and it should either detect and correct the error, or it should detect and report the error. And if nothing can be done to overcome this, then the only possibility available to the OS is to halt the system. So the system will crash, or it will simply restart or something, so that the problem will be rectified, or the program may simply be terminated. If instead of restarting the system, if possible, the error causing program may be simply terminated. Resource allocation, this we have already seen that the OS is generally called as the resource manager. It is the one that allocates all the resources. Another simple task is accounting. Accounting is nothing but the OS has to keep track of who are all using the computer based on their user ID and password, and how much of time is being utilized by the various users. So it's a kind of statistics regarding the computer usage that is also maintained by the operating system. Protection and security is about ensuring that the data and the computer resources are protected from unwanted accesses or illegal accesses. And one simple mechanism that is commonly practiced for enforcing this is the usage of passwords. So every user is assigned a unique password, and the password has to be entered in order to gain access to the system. And nowadays we also have the biometric fingerprints or face recognition based authentication techniques to improve the security. So finally, to before I conclude this session or lecture, I'm requesting you to try this in your individual systems, that if you go to the desktop window, and if you press Ctrl Alt Delete the keys together, you will see the window called Task Manager. So the Task Manager is like a it gives you a bird's eye view of the operating system at the moment, or it's like a cockpit where a pilot could see the overall functioning of the flight. Similarly, you can view the operations of your computer by looking at this particular window. So I request everybody to try this once, because as we progress into the subject, we will introduce a lot of new terminologies, and it will be useful if you have some look into this terminologies already as mentioned in these task manager views, and also it will be a good experience for you. So what is actually presented by the task manager is it tells you all the usage patterns. So how many applications are currently running, and how the CPUs are divided among those applications, and how much of memory is allocated. All the details are openly made available by the task manager, and you can even control them. You can terminate some application manually by clicking it. And this is another view of the task manager which shows the statistics, usage the execution statistics of the CPU. And this is one more view where you can see that they have mentioned a keyword called PID, process ID. So process ID is a very important value for our purpose. When we enter into the process management topic, we will see what is the role of PID in managing the user processes. So with this I'm concluding the first lecture, in which I had introduced you the basics of operating system, I hope you have got some idea about how the operating system is helpful in a computer. How is it controlling the computer hardware? Thank you.